Hello and welcome back to On Point Wargaming. Today it's going to be a very short video just to go over a couple of basing techniques that I've been using on recent projects. Straight away I'll admit basing is very much like Marmite. You either love it or you hate it. I really love basing. It's something that I always look forward to doing once I've completed a project. But question, what makes basing so important in a project? Well, for me it really ties it all together. It makes it more of a cohesive project and gives the whole thing a real identity. It's something that I always have in the forefront of my mind before putting any paint on a miniature. How's it going to look when it's based? Then this gives me something to work towards and what in my mind it's going to look like when that project's finished. The two techniques I'm going to be looking at today is the first is jungle basing, which I used on my marine project for bolt action earlier this year. This can also be used for armies like Australia or Japan for bolt action, anything in a more jungle environment. And the second is more of a rocky desert basing technique that I've used for Wild West Exodus. Now, if you haven't checked out Wild West Exodus, I would highly recommend that you do. It is a really fantastic game. Big thanks to the guys at Tabletop Battle for getting me into Wild West Exodus. Really loving it, really enjoying the miniatures, enjoying the game. It's a really good game, and I would certainly recommend you get out there and check it out. Okay, so without any further ado, let's get on to jungle basing. Okay, let's talk jungle basing. One good thing about this technique is it's relatively simple, but it gives a really good effective jungle basing technique, and it's something I kind of stumbled on by accident when I was looking at bits and pieces to use while putting my marines together. But what I'll do is I'll run over the steps, and after the steps I'll put a couple of photographs up of what this looks like actually in practice. Okay, so the first thing that you'll need to do is grit your base. I use any kind of standard railway ballast from model shops. Any kind of grit will do, coarse grit, fine grit, to bigger grit. It's all down to personal preference. This is applied to the base with either super glue or PVA, again down to preference. I use PVA, but you can use super glue, again all down to yourself. Second step, once this is all dried, is to paint the base brown. Now what you've got to remember is most of the base will be covered in the later stages of the basing, so it doesn't really matter what colour brown you use. I tend to use Vallejo chocolate brown or burnt umber. It just gives a good base colour to work with. And when you can see bits and pieces through, it tends to work, but at the end of the day any brown paint will do. Now step 3, here's the secret part, and the kind of central part of my jungle basing technique. It's actually mixed herbs. It sounds ridiculous, but mixed herbs actually work really well. They represent, or they look like jungle scrub. Crushed leaves, jungle floor debris, the kind of things you'd normally see on a jungle floor, and mixed herbs really replicates this in an inexpensive and affordable way, and best of all, the smell doesn't linger too much once you've finished. Okay, so once you've added your mixed herbs, again allow them to dry. That's your base sorted for the I mean, you could quite easily just use that as your jungle base. What I tend to do is add a few bits and pieces just to give it that extra look. One thing that I use is clump foliage. Now if everyone's heard of clump foliage, there's probably used it at some point. I tend to use a couple of different colours just to break it up a little bit, and again these can be added with super glue or PVA. Just dot it around, don't go overboard with them. It can sort of make the base look a bit busy and detract away from the miniature. You'll get an effect that you don't really want if your bases look a bit too busy and a bit too full. After the clump foliage, I tend to use tufts. Now you can make your own tufts. I'm pretty lazy, so I don't. I tend to get mine from Army Painter. They do a wide range of different colours, different grades, sizes, and I find they work really well across most basing projects that I've worked on. So once the tufts and the foliage have been applied, After that, it's down to yourself, you know, all kinds of little bits and pieces, little extra things like bark chippings. You can use plastic plants to make fronds or ferns. Again, all really down to yourself. I picked up a plastic carnation set, and I've been chopping bits and pieces off that for the past year and using it across different things. Bit of paint to bring down the shininess of the plastic, and it works really well. That is essentially the technique for jungle basing. What I'll do now is put a couple of photographs up just to show a few of the bits and pieces that I've used it on in my marine project. The next technique I'm going to show you is for Wild West Exodus. Now, I mentioned this earlier in the video. Bit of a brief rundown about Wild West Exodus. It's a sort of scientific Wild West mishmash, but it works really well. The background is fantastic, the miniatures are lovely, and I really enjoy painting them. One thing to remember about Wild West Exodus is the figures come on based on different basing, and this is integral to the game, but it doesn't stop you from using a really nice basing technique just to make your figures pop and stand out. And this is exactly what I've done with mine. All of my Wild West Exodus figures are based using cork. Now, I absolutely love working with cork table mats, those funny round things for putting hot pans on. They're versatile, and cork is such a good material to base with. It's cheap and it works, and when it's painted it looks really fantastic. Now, you can use this for rocky outcrops, broken walls, urban basing. It's such a versatile material to work with, and there's loads of it out there. You can pick it up from supermarkets, DIY stores, you name it, you can find cork everywhere. To start off with, what you want to do is take your cork mat and break it down into really kind of jagged, rough sections and apply it to the base. I would recommend using super glue to apply this. It gives a good bond between the cork and the base, so I would certainly use super glue for this part. Once the cork base is added, what you want to do is fill in the gaps between the base and the cork with the same grit that you used on your jungle basing. I would recommend you use super glue for this as well. What the effect you're trying to go for is to represent little rocks, the ground, and combine it with super glue gives it gives it that effect. Sometimes it makes it bunch up, it sticks to both the base and the cork. Once it's painted, it gives a real good kind of representation of a sandy desert floor. Once that's added, what you want to then do is paint them. Now, unlike jungle basing, where the paint really wasn't relevant to the actual base, with Wild West Exodus I tend to use the same colour technique when painting my bases. I start off with a base coat of burnt umber, slop this all over it, water it down slightly so it doesn't get too soaked into the cork. You can do 2 or 3 different watered down layers. If you're gonna do that, what I'd recommend you use is kind of a 90-10 ratio between the paint and the water. It gives it a good consistency and will flow over the cork really well. Once that's fully dried, what you need to then do is dry brush the whole thing. What I would recommend you do with this is use burnt umber and sunny skin tone from Vallejo. 60-40 mix will see a good coverage, but again, make sure it's completely off your brush, and it will bring out the detail, make it look a lot like rock. The final part for the painting technique rather on these bases is to use Vallejo ivory. Again, use it very sparingly, and you don't want to go over the whole base. What you need to do is just catch the real edges. This will make the cork and the base really pop out and give it the effect of rock. Once it's all dry, again, go back to your army painter tufts, or tufts anywhere, tufts you make, add these 1 or 2 on your base. Again, what you don't want to be doing is covering the whole lot in tufts. This will detract away from the miniature, and you'll lose the effect that you're really going for. One thing I like about this basing technique, it's quick, it's easy, and you can get through quite a lot in one sitting. What I'll do now is throw a couple of photographs on the screen of what this looks like in practice. Well, I hope you found those 2 techniques helpful. They're really simple to complete, just using a few bits and pieces you can find around the house or pick up really locally, really cheaply. They're not going to break the bank to put these bases together, and I think that's what I love about basing, is that you can use a whole manner of different things you can find all over the place. I aim to make a few more basing videos moving forward, just to outline, you know, different techniques, different processes we use to get those bases looking really good. Well, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. Take care now. Bye bye.